You see, when you see certain men begin to manifest a certain dimension of power and grace before their generation, when you see certain men literally begin to unveil results, mind-blowing results in their assignments, and when you see certain men being entrusted with agendas to invade nations and agendas to fill up stadium in particular towns and specific regions in the world, you must not become under pressure if you do not know the consecration that was tied to them doing what they began to do. You see, it is going to be foolishness if you desire certain results and yet don't desire the pattern of the consecration that made them to become who they've become in the whole process. I think one of the things that I've noticed over time is that we have a generation of young men, a generation of young women who only want to follow men but not follow the template that made them to become who they become. They want the graces for fathers, yet they hate the template of consecration for fathers that the fathers have used over time to become who they become. How is it that years later we are still giving reference to people like Kathryn Kuhlman? How is it that years later, years and many years later, we are still giving reference to men like Idahosa, men like Babalola, men that have died? The reason is simple: because we love what they did, we love what they've done over time, yet we hate the consecration patterns that made them to become who they've become at the end of the day. I was watching a video recently, and one of the things that I noticed in this video of Kathryn Kuhlman, she spoke of one thing that is very interesting before generations. She said that there's nobody who God cannot use to an extent that He used her. She said the only condition is that you must pay the price. You see, if you can't pay the price before a generation to walk in a certain dimension with God, then there are certain things that God will never be able to entrust you with. If you don't pay the price for obedience, you will not enter into the promised land. If you don't pay the price of being faithful, you may end up selling the Messiah, and at the end of the day, you may not make it to where you must be at the end of the journey. So the consecration patterns that fathers have used over time have been downplayed by many people. You see, when you see certain people doing certain meetings and hosting God's glory to certain capacities, it is going to be foolishness if you wake up in the morning and all that you will say is that maybe these ones are lucky, or everything that you will say is that maybe these ones are just, at the end of the day, privileged. You see, you may end up doing exactly what they are doing, but the results will be different, because one is doing it from a place where they've paid the price, from a place of consecration, from a place where Elohim has instructed them to, and you'll be doing things from the place of pressure at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, both of you have got rewards before Elohim when we get to heaven. So you see, there are certain things that you must not envy. There are certain things that you must not be jealous of. The only thing that you must inquire of from Elohim is, what should I do for me to attain a certain kind of posture that is similar to this one? Or you have to just unveil yourself before Elohim and ask Him to help you deal with your infirmities at the end of the day. You see, we won't be a generation of men who desire certain things that we've seen certain men and women function in, yet we don't know their wounds. We won't be a generation that will function to certain heights and certain degrees when we don't know the scars that they have for them to function in that assignment. For some people, the scars that they have today, it is proof that they are qualified to host those national prayer marathons. For some of them, the scars they have today, it is proof that God has got them to fill up stadiums. When you try to do it, even if you've got money, you fail at the end of the day. I came to look at something in the realm of the spirit, and one thing I came to understand is that, you see, it takes more than just organization to make certain realities come to manifestation. It takes more than what you call social media branding. It takes an altar, a burning altar. It takes the price. You must pay the price when nobody else is watching you. You must pay it heavily. Mako Zavata. Listen, everybody as well wants to follow Jesus, yet they don't want to carry their own cross. Everyone is okay with following Jesus, but they're not okay with carrying their own cross as they're getting to follow him at the end of the day. You must make up your mind. In chapter number 1 and verses 12 to 26 of Acts, we see that the apostles had a mission, and this mission was to replace Judas Iscariot. Listen, Judas Iscariot started out well, but he ended up misplacing everything that was possibly going to help him stand firm at the end of the day. Only God knows how many books we would have read written by Judas Iscariot. Only God knows how much would have benefited from his ministry at the end of the day. But you see, greed overtook him to an extent where he saw the Messiah. And after he saw the Messiah, Scripture begins to unveil to us a certain kind of reality. And the reality that Scripture begins to unveil to us is that Judas Iscariot died. But at the end of the day, the disciples had to sit down and they had to replace him in his assignment. When you fail to function, there are certain things that you never do. There are certain things that you never do as qualifications as far as Elohim is concerned. There are certain things that you never do in your lane of ministry if you're not living in obedience and faithfulness to God. When you look at the man called Moses, Moses could not enter into the promised land. The reason was not because he was not handsome. The reason was not because he was a bad leader. Because how come he led men, he led women for generations, but how come one day God says you will not enter into that space? It was because he lacked one thing, and that thing that he lacked, it was everything that God was looking for. He lacked the ears that pay attention to everything that Elohim is in the whole process. He lacked, the stature of humility to a certain kind. Because you see, there are certain things that will disqualify God from using you. There are certain things that will disqualify you from being used by God. The temper that Moses had, it costed him his long-awaited land that was flowing with milk and honey. It costed him the promised land. You see, your disobedience can cost you the promised land. Don't live in disobedience. Don't live under pressure. Live entirely in your means and live entirely by building capacity over things. Don't do anything under pressure. Do things when the Lord has spoken to you to do them. Do things when Elohim has put it on your heart. When Elohim has communicated to those that are over you. When Elohim has ministered to you. Don't do anything out of pressure. Don't do things that you see men do. And when you begin to do them, the thing is you see them do it. But the moment you start doing it, you fail. You go to heaven and you realize that you were so well, you did so well in things that God did not call you to do. Yet you failed in the things that he called you to do. So as you get to progress, let it be on your heart that all that you will do is all that heaven is requiring of you. Let it be that you will pay the price in your generation. Let it be that you will not do meetings out of pressure. Let it be that you will not call for gatherings out of pressure, but that Elohim has ministered to you entirely at the end of the day. Maroso Kovati. As you listen to this, just spend a few minutes. Pray in the spirit if you can. Meraito no skevati.